Good morning. Welcome to the November 4th Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting. If any member of the audience wishes to speak to an item on the agenda, there are speaker request forms on the left of the dais. Please fill out the request with the agenda number of the item you wish to speak to and hand it to the secretary. At this time, we would like to ask that if any member of the audience has a cell phone or other electronic device, that you either turn it off or turn the ringer to silent. If you need to take a call, please step out to the hallway so that the meeting is not disrupted. The public hearing on item number 1, approval of the October 21st, 2021 Zoning Board of Adjustment meetings, is opened. I don't have any speaker requests forms for this. Would anyone like to make any comments on this item? Okay. Karen motioned to approve it. And I'm sorry, I didn't see the second. Oh, Mike. Is there any discussion on this item? I have just a small note in where it says who's absent and who's present. It says under absent that Ron Weifenbach was present. So a small note would be to change that to absent. I don't know if anyone wants to adopt that in their motion.
Sure.
I can't make a motion, so that's why I didn't do that. Okay. Karen and Mike are moving to approve, but changing that to absent. Any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Number 2.
Good morning. Item number 2 is a variance request to reduce a portion of a side yard setback from 8 feet to 5.5 feet. And this request is being made in order to absolve a construction error that was made and wasn't caught until midway through the project. So I'll introduce the project on this next series of slides here. The project is located at 5936 Cloud Peak Drive. This is in the High Point Ranch subdivision, West Rapid City. You can see the aerial view of the property on the screen in front of you and the existing single-family home. It's located at the intersection of Cloud Peak Drive and Targhee Drive, and this acre is this lot is 0.38 acres in size. It is located in the LDR2 zoning district, and the properties surrounding it in this neighborhood also have that same zoning designation. The future land use designation for this area is low density neighborhood. This is the major street plan. You can see that Cloud Peak Drive and Targhee Drive are local streets, and there's no impact to the major street plan from this request. This is the site plan showing where the area of encroachment is. You can see it's on the north lot line, and it's just for a short sliver here. So this is the 8-foot setback, and then there's just a small corner of this foundation that is encroaching into that setback. I do want to point out that there is an 8-foot wide utility and drainage easement on this part of the lot, and so in making this request, the applicant first had to vacate that easement, which they have done. They've only vacated the portion of the area for the encroachment. So in reviewing that request, it was determined that there is sufficient access for utilities as well as sufficient drainage that remains on the site, and that's something that we looked at in reviewing this variance request, was that there's still adequate access and utility drainage. I also want to point out that the home is fire sprinkler protected, as are other properties in this neighborhood via a covenant agreement. There are no visibility or traffic concerns that are caused by this request as well. This is the Exhibit A, which was documented as part of the vacation of easement. On this graphic, you can see that sliver just a little bit better. Going through site photos, this is looking east at the entrance of the property. This is kind of zooming in on that side yard setback where the variance is requested. And this is looking from the east to the west at the back of the property, and you can see how drainage from this site flows down into a ravine that's located just a bit down the hill there. This is looking east down Targhee Drive and south down Cloud Peak Drive. So in looking at this request, we noted that the home is fire sprinkler protected, that the easement was successfully vacated, that there are no traffic concerns, and overall that the variance is in harmony with the neighborhood. We did find that this really is the minimum adjustment necessary in order to mitigate this issue, and that strict application of the ordinance would deprive the applicant of reasonable use, given the extraordinary expense that it would take to demolish and reconstruct that foundation, redesign the walls and the roof, et cetera. So with that, we are recommending to approve this variance request, and I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Sarah. Karen?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This happens occasionally. I mean, not very often that we see something like this that happens. I know there was one just down the street from my house 20 years ago, so that just shows you it doesn't happen too often. My question is really, is there any inspection that's done before foundation is done? I mean, they based it on the how it was dug, and then they laid the foundation. But is there anything in between that anybody's inspecting?
Madam Chair? So when our inspectors go out, because we do not require a surveyed site plan for a single family or 2-unit residence, we've tried to get that in place. We've failed at council. It's an expense to the property owner. They don't have any landmarks that would allow them to perform an accurate inspection. Obviously, they see where the pins are. They've usually got stakes out along that front lot line. If you're just eyeballing it in, you would never have picked up that there was an encroachment. And typically, it isn't until they're finalizing their construction loan that the bank will require one, and then we become aware of these. I'd also like to note that if we have the same builder encroaching consistently, you won't see us support those, because that's just a poor business method. And we made it very clear in this instance that this was a first-time offender, and so we certainly felt that that existing structure that was appeared to be purely by accident created a special circumstance, and so for that reason we could support it.
Thank you.
Haven?
Thank you, Vicki. You answered part of my concern here too, as to what the penalty is for doing this. It was either a mistake, which shouldn't have been made, or it was intentional. This was the best place to put it. They intentionally did it, knowing, well, they could come to the Planning Commission and get this little variance. So I'm glad to see that you follow the contractors to make sure this isn't something that particular contractors are doing time and time again.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Vicki?
Yeah, when they have to come in and submit for these variances, it's with hat in hand. These are hard to even open up that discussion, because they do take pride on doing it right. And when this does happen, it's usually an employee error somewhere along the line. Maybe a stake got knocked over and then someone stuck it back in without doing the overall assessment as to how many inches it was one way or the other. It all factors into it. But if we saw the same builder with repeat offenses, we would certainly be bringing that to your attention.
Thank you, Vicki. John? Oh, your light's up. Are you?
What are the reasons the council says we don't want to have a site survey done prior to starting building? Every other place I've ever been in my life, it's required, just to keep this from happening.
Madam Chair, it's purely cost and then a time delay. Try to hire a surveyor these days to perform and to create an exhibit and stake land. They're out there 60 to 90 days. And we have a limited building envelope here in our area because of weather. Primarily, it was cost, though. Those can be anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000. and it just adds to the overall cost of the residents.
What would it cost if we didn't give them the variance to knock 2.5 feet off of their garage?
Point well made.
All right.
Well, I don't have any other lights up, and I don't have any speaker requests. Karen?
I'll move approval of the variance with the stipulation that this is a minimal adjustment to make them have usable use of their land. I think that's kind of the
Criteria?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Vicki?
perhaps that the area where the foundation was existing before it was noticed created an existing condition, which is that special circumstance. That foundation was existing, the walls were up. Minimal adjustment, we deny these all the time because they could have the balance of the house and still have reasonable use. But I think it all, in this case, does go together, where there is a special circumstance created by the existing foundation, and granting this variance does allow them that minimal adjustment in order to maintain the existing structure.
Okay, thank you. I'll make sure that that's in the motion.
Okay, so Karen motioned and Mike seconded. It makes me a little uncomfortable to call the foundation existing condition when it was just built, because I think, I would hope that doesn't open up others to have like a similar accident. And I wonder, another criteria, like the granting of the variance is in harmony and, you know, within the general purposes and intent, won't be injurious to the neighborhood. If maybe that one might be more appropriate.
Certainly you can visit with the motion maker on that. Please note that there are many communities that if you're utilizing, and granted it's not for new build but existing build, if you come in and you're wanting to rebuild on an existing foundation, if that foundation is existing, variances aren't required. We've not taken that position in Rapid City, but that has been held up in court where if that foundation is existing, it does create a special circumstance.
Was this a new foundation, though?
Yes.
I'll leave it up to the motion makers if they want to keep with their motion or adjust. Okay, so we're sticking with the original motion, that there are existing conditions. Any other discussion on the motion? I don't know if you heard him, but Vince asked if the applicant was here.
I do not see anyone in the audience from the applicant's team.
Madam Chair, please note that we had to continue this for 2 weeks because we had the address incorrect on the legal notification. They were at the last meeting, so that might be why he lost track of when we were hearing this one.
Any other discussion? John?
What are the covenants for this? Did they go through their HOA and all that and get it all cleaned up, or is it just, they did?
Sure.
Yes, Vicki?
So again, we don't have copies of covenants other than that part of a covenant that would ensure that the property owner is maintaining ownership and maintenance of drainage. But beyond that, we don't have any ability to enforce that. They did have to notice the neighborhood, but beyond that, we don't have any knowledge of homeowners association covenants, since we have no authority to enforce.
And if I may, the covenant that I spoke of in my presentation was related to the fire mitigation, so the fire sprinkler protection covenant that is in place for this.
Thank you, Sarah and Vicki. Does that answer your question, John? I mean... Well, I don't see any other lights up, So I guess we'll vote. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. 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 Any opposed? Okay, 1 nay from John. Alrighty. That brings us, do we have any zoning board discussion items, staff items?
Motion to close.
Okay. Karen made the motion to close the meeting. Any seconds to close? We've got Eric. All those in favor, please say aye. 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 Opposed? Okay. 7:17. All right, well, now we'll commence with the City of Rapid City Planning Commission meeting for November 4th, 2021. Again, with the speaker request forms, they're to the left of the dais. So if you'd like to fill one out, please give it to a staff member to speak on any item. And please also check your cell phone if you haven't yet to make sure it's off or on silent. We'll move on to the consent calendar. Items 1 through 7 have been placed on the consent calendar and may be approved as a group. Action will be taken on all consent items in accordance with staff's recommendation by a single vote. Any item may be removed from the consent calendar by any planning commissioner, staff member, or audience member for separate consideration at this time. The findings of the Planning Commission are recommendations to the City Council. The City Council will make the final decision. Are there any items 1 through 7 that staff would like to remove from the consent calendar? Okay. Are there any items 1 through 7 that the Planning Commission would like to remove? John would like to remove item number 2. Anyone else? I'd like to remove number 3, the annexation. And no one else? Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Vicki?
Sarah just pointed out that if you're going to pull item 3, you have to pull item 4 because you can't vote on a rezone if you're not previously voting to annex.
Okay, well then let's pull 3 and 4. So 2, 3, and 4. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent items number 1, 5 through 7. Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Karen. Okay, any discussion on the motion?
Point of order, did we ask the audience?
Oh, I'm
if-
sorry. Thank you, Eric. Would any audience members like to remove items number 1 or 5 through 7 from the consent calendar to be considered separately? Thank you, Eric. Okay, seeing none, any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor of approving number 1, 5 through 7, according to staff's recommendations, please say aye. 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 Opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. So number 2.
Madam Chair, John, you pulled this one. We are recommending that this be continued to your November 24th Planning Commission meeting. We are currently finalizing the review of a traffic impact study, and you'll hear it at your next meeting in conjunction with a preliminary subdivision plan for this same area. Does that go to your question, John? Could we have you use your mic?
I want it to be park forest, okay? For a lot of reasons.
And we can certainly have that discussion when that rezone comes forward at your next meeting. And we do anticipate putting it on non-consent so that Planning Commission understands what all we've looked at as we bring this forward.
Okay.
Haven, you have a comment on this?
This issue was previously discussed briefly, actually, a couple of meetings ago, and the traffic was one of the main issues. So I guess you have received the traffic study, I understand. So I guess I was wondering when we would have that available to us to review.
Madam Chair, It'll be linked to the agenda when the item comes forward for your consideration. If anyone would like it in advance, we could certainly email it to you as well. Right now, our engineers, their traffic engineer, working through red line comments, so we'll try to have a final product available for the public and for you to look at.
Any other comments on this item? Okay. Mike made the motion to continue to the next meeting, and then Vince seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Oh, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. Now, items number 3 and 4. I just wanted item number 3 removed because, at least when I looked at it, there was no link for the staff project report. And so I didn't have a chance to actually review it.
Thank you. Madam Chair, may I give a brief presentation then? Would that help?
Yes, Sarah, please give it.
Okay.
We would appreciate that.
Of course. So item number 3 and item number 4 are an annexation and the associated rezone for the property that you see on your screen here. This is a 40-acre parcel that's located east of Elkvale Drive. This is south of the Elks Crossing subdivision, and in fact a future phase of the Elks Crossing subdivision. So here you can see an aerial view of the property. The property is currently zoned agriculture in Pennington County, and north of the property, which is currently in the city limits, has a zoning designation of low-density residential 2. The future land use category for this property is urban neighborhood, so the rezone request to LDR2 fits in well with that designation that's there in our comprehensive plan. Here's the major street plan. This will be a residential neighborhood, and there is a proposed collector that will come through this property, and that will be reviewed with the platting as that process goes forward. This is the annexation exhibit that was submitted with the application. Again, it's about 40 acres. Here's some site photos. This is standing at the current terminus of the city limits looking south into the property. I do want to point out that I followed up with the applicant right after taking these site photos because the sign had fallen over and it's since been put back up, and we have photo documentation of that, so proper notice has been given. This is looking to the east and then looking to the north back into the existing residential development there. And lastly to the west. So in looking at this annexation, it meets the criteria for annexation based on the requirements in state law. And in looking at the rezone, we see that it's in compliance with the future land use plan, and we're recommending to approve both the annexation and the rezone.
Thank you, Sarah. I knew I wouldn't have any issues with it, but I didn't have a chance to see it, so.
Madam Chair, I have to explain. Andrea Wolf, who puts our agendas together and publishes them, was on vacation, which she rarely takes, and so people were trying to cover for her. This is a rare instance that a project report wouldn't actually get linked, but I just wanted you to know that it was not her error. This is something she takes very seriously and is responsible for having a 5-star product at the end of every publication, but we didn't catch it in her absence. See how important she is?
She is essential. Well, I wouldn't go that far. Yeah, I didn't want to call any staff member out. I just didn't have an opportunity to look at it, and I felt it was necessary that we had the opportunity.
It always falls on me.
Like a true leader. Okay, so do we have any comments on this from the Planning Commission, staff? No. Okay, Vince made a motion to approve items number 3 and 4, is that correct? Or just number 3? No. Together? Okay. Okay, and then Mike seconded that. Any discussion on the motion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. I think we go now to the regular agenda. It says number 18. I think that's number 8. Number 21 PD 036.
Thank you. This is item number 8, 21 PD 036. This is a major amendment to a planned development overlay to allow an arcade within a restaurant. More specifically, this is the Pizza Ranch on the south side of town off of Stumer Road by the Walmart on that end of town. More specifically, they're proposing to put an addition on the west side of the building and take out a row of parking. It'll be a 2,910 square foot addition to an existing 6,633 square foot Pizza Ranch restaurant, which is an expansion of over 20%. The applicant is also requesting an exception to reduce their parking from a required 105 spaces to 102 spaces. The original PD on the property was approved in 2013, and that was to allow reduced drive-through stacking. As you can see on that aerial image, there is a drive-through lane on the east side of the building, and they have some pre-ordering pickup that you can do through that drive-through. The zoning of the property is general commercial with a planned development overlay. Future land use is mixed-use commercial. Stumer Road is a collector street, and this gives you a better idea of where the property is located off of 5th and Catron. Here's a floor plan of the proposed addition, so you can see this large area on the west side of the building. This is the new addition. The applicant is proposing to actually have reduced seating, so there will be a total of 278 seats. That's part of the reason why we're able to support the parking exception. Here are the elevations of the building. This is looking at existing conditions, so you can see that area that's kind of blacked out. That's where the addition is going to be, so you can see that they're taking out that row of parking right there. And then here are the proposed changes, so you can see they're changing the parking layout to diagonal spaces in some areas. Here's some site photos. This is looking at the area of the proposed addition. This is on the east side of the building, looking to the southwest. This is that same side of the building, looking to the northeast. This is looking southwest at the building. And then this is looking west on Stumer Road, looking east on Stumer Road. And there you can see that the sign has been posted. Staff is recommending approval of this request with the stipulations as noted in the staff report, and staff also supports the exception to reduce parking from 105 spaces to 102 spaces. Staff supports that request because the addition will result in a reduction in restaurant seating, and the arcade is an accessory use to the main use as a restaurant. The patrons of the arcade will be patrons of the restaurant. And with that, I'm available if you have any questions.
Thank you, Carl. Ethan?
Is the term arcade, is that defined somewhere? And just what could an arcade include? And the second question I guess I'm a little surprised that this sort of an application would require a major amendment to a planned development overlay. Maybe you could kind of explain why that would be necessary.
So first off, we do not have a definition within the zoning ordinance for arcade. However, an arcade is usually an area where you have games and other activities for people to enjoy. The fact that this is a pizza ranch and that in their letter of intent they've identified that it'll have arcade type games. We've all seen them. If you've gone into any mall, there will be a kid's arcade somewhere, and they have interactive games where they're a race car driver, or they can throw a ball through a hole or whack a gator or whatever. And so we anticipate that'll have the same kind of activities here.
So presumably that wouldn't include games of chance where you could win money?
No, no. Again, these are ones you might win tickets, and they would be redeemable for a stuffed animal, but not money. As far as why it required a major amendment, our ordinance specifically spells out what is a minimal amendment to a plan development, which can just be reviewed administratively, and what is a major amendment. If they are asking to expand by more than 20%, or they're asking for any type of land area exception in excess of 20%, staff does not have the authority to act on those. You do. And in this case, it was more than a 20% expansion, and as such, it's being brought before you for your consideration.
So the application for the arcade really doesn't trigger it. It's the
Square footage.
Okay, Mike?
Along those same lines, then, thank you, Madam Chair. So they are expanding, they already have an arcade in there, but they're expanding it. So at the point that they decide that now we'll change seating, they'll have to come back to us?
Madam Chair, no, if they don't, so if there is a calculation based on the square footage for occupancy, so regardless of how they revise their seating internal, that doesn't require the city's review and approval.
I guess my question goes back to, they say reduce parking because they're reducing seating, and that's what you're okaying this on. But if they come back and say they want to now take the arcade and add more seating because they're busier, now we don't address the parking again. Is that what I'm understanding?
We are calculating the parking as if the whole thing was a restaurant. That's the formula that we used. So if they did use the whole thing, they're not, and we're supporting this because there is a portion of it where the patrons that are sitting in the restaurant will be the same people over using the arcade. It would be rare for someone to drive there just to utilize the arcade. So based on the requirements set forth by the parking regulations, it requires the 105. Is that what it is?
Correct.
And they're providing
102.
102. So again, if we broke it out where one was just for the arcade and one was the restaurant, but they brought it all in as if it were to expand the entire restaurant, they would need 105. So they're good.
Okay, but I guess I did not hear my question answered. They have the building space that they've expanded. Now I put 20 more seats in because I'm busier. We won't address the parking at that point then?
So again, our parking is based on the square footage of the structure.
But you had mentioned the seating was being reduced, so you weren't going to, you didn't feel the parking was a point of contention, so to speak.
Based on their floor plan, an area of the restaurant is now going to be arcade, and the arcade is being expanded. So if they were to come in and get a building permit to do any other alterations, we would have the opportunity to look at that to ensure that the parking is being addressed. If it was more than a 20% change where they were short parking that was in excess of 20%, that again would be a major amendment, and you would see it.
Okay, that answers my question.
If we took a restaurant, pick a restaurant, any restaurant in town, McDonald's as an example, we don't count the number of chairs they have. We look at that square footage, and then we do a base calculation as to, on the average, how many patrons that would hold at one time.
So it's not based on the occupancy number?
That is how we come to that occupancy
Okay.
number.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
All right, do we have any more questions from the Planning Commission? Comments from anyone? All right, make me the motion to approve the stipulations. Vince seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Nope. All right, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 9.
Item number 9 is a major amendment to a conditional use permit to expand an existing mobile home park. This property is located at 143rd Avenue and Seeger Drive. You can see it on the screen in front of you. This site is about 64 acres in size. Currently, there is about 207 mobile home spaces there. You can see the configuration of those now on the screen. And you can also see there's some undeveloped areas as well, and that's where the mobile home park will be expanded into. The property is zoned medium density residential district and has a future land use designation of urban neighborhood. So the existing uses are in compliance, as well as the proposed expansion falls within the intent of the city's comprehensive plan. Here's the major street plan. 143rd Avenue is a collector street and Seeger Drive is a minor arterial. The traffic engineering, the traffic engineer has taken a look at this proposed project and they determined that a traffic impact study was not required as part of this expansion that they are proposing. Here's a site plan. This shows the existing 207 mobile home spaces, and they are expanding the mobile home park by adding a total of 85 spaces in the future for a total of 292. This is the existing spaces, and then on this screen you can see where the new spaces are proposed to be located within this area, coming down here and along this side. They suspect that they will build this out in two separate phases. The first part that they're going to construct is along, is this area kind of shown in purple, and then later at a future date, they'll go ahead and do this area in red. But their application includes the total, the accumulation of all of those, and as I mentioned previously, that's 292 total spaces. The internal circulation provided on this site is through the private roads that you see here. Most of those are paved. And as far as utilities go, this property is served by a combination of city sanitary sewer and private water. They are providing the minimum parking requirement, which is two parking spaces for every mobile home space. And they've also identified some areas throughout the park for additional guest parking. And on top of that, based on the width of those interior private roads, there's also room for parking along those as well. So parking was not a concern in looking at this request. We also looked at setbacks and clearances as part of this application. There are a handful of existing mobile home spaces that do not meet the 25-foot setback requirement, but because those are all existing mobile home spaces, those are considered legal non-conforming. When in the future those mobile homes need to be replaced with new ones, then any new structure that goes in there will need to either be in compliance, which many of them do have the space to be relocated in compliance, or the applicant would have to seek an individual zoning administrative exception or seek a variance, and they're aware of that as they plan for the future of how this property will be maintained and function in the future. Looking at total coverage, our mobile home park requirements require that the total lot area provides a minimum of 3,000 square feet of lot area for each mobile home space, and this park development has met that in excess. So overall, in reviewing the criteria for a conditional use permit and in reviewing our criteria for mobile home parks, we are recommending approval of this major amendment to expand the mobile home park, and are always happy to see additional housing opportunities in the community. So I'll stand for any questions, and Kyle Hansen with FMG Engineering is also in the audience if you have any questions for the applicant.
Thank you, Sarah. Eric Odenbacher.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My main question comes from what appears to be retention ponds and the future development over those. And first of all, are those like retention ponds, and how is that going to be addressed with building over those particular areas?
That's a great question. I'll answer it, and Todd can probably add on. I should have mentioned, those were used when the development was using their own lagoons, but they've all been transferred over to city sanitary sewer. So as part of this phase of development, those lagoons are being decommissioned, if you will, or I'm not sure what the right terminology is for that. But so they're shown on the aerial, but they will be closed. They're no longer functioning, and the city's providing sanitary sewer service for all of these units.
I have one other question, if you wouldn't mind. What is the business to the east of that mobile home park?
That is like an auto salvage area. You're talking about this portion over here?
Correct. And are there going to be any kind of barriers or fencing required between those two areas?
This is that's a great question, so thanks for asking that. I wondered about that as I was reviewing this. If this were if the property that has the industrial use that's adjacent to this were coming in after the fact, they would be required to screen their use from the adjacent residential uses. But because both uses are existing, the mobile home park is not required to screen itself from the industrial use. And Vicki, just correct me if there's anything I'm missing there.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, in other words, the requirement to provide screening falls on the industrial user, which is the property to the east. This property owner has the option, they could put up a screening fence, but we can't require it from them. As Sarah mentioned, if the use to the east should ever expand, or if it should change to some other industrial use, they lose that legal non-conforming status, and they would have to put up a 6-foot privacy fence. We annexed this in, and it's all just kind of been grandfathered since then, with the development in place as it stands today.
Thank you, Eric. And I appreciate you, I'm just going to jump in line here. I appreciate you bringing up the screening because I had the same thought that normally, you don't require an applicant to provide their own screening because you would think that it's in their best interest. But in a situation like this where you're providing kind of the most affordable housing to people, they don't always have a lot of choice where they're going to live. And I think, if there's any way in the future that we can start requiring, people to provide more amenities to their clients or their customers, I really do think that, it would be awful to live right next to a salvage yard, to be frank.
Madam Chair, so obviously this is one of our most affordable housing options. Currently, the developer has got to provide patio areas, storage lockers, paved parking, paved access, and that all parlays into what is that lot rent going to be. Amenities such as patio and storage lockers, it's hard to keep adding on and keep this affordable at the same time because it's always going to be passed on to the user. But your comment is well taken.
Thank you. Okay, Mike Klasny.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Eric, you brought up the main points that I had in the drainage. And I guess on that fencing, I really hope that they look at it because you've got children that are going to be having access to a salvage yard, and for the safety of all those people that are there, I would think that there might be something that should be considered by the owners. And the other thing, while I agree that affordable housing, you need to take care of not getting it too expensive, but at the same time, we've had affordable housing that's gone up, and we put playgrounds in, and the developers have done a nice job of providing areas so that with all the kids that are involved. And that's the other thing that I see missing here is I don't see an area where these kids can have some place to go and play. And I think, although we can't require it, it's been something that's been ongoing, and I've seen it show up in a lot of developments that are coming into town. And I would hope that people that develop these kind of things look at that as an opportunity. And yes, affordable housing, we can go on and on about affordable housing, but at the same time, it should be affordable that is usable for those. We're going to put young kids in there, and so those amenities should be looked at, and I hope that they're thought of as a person develops a property.
Madam Chair, that is really such a great comment. Right now in single-family residential development, whether it's stick-built or a manufactured home, we don't have it in the ordinance where if you do X number of units, you have to create a pocket park in that residential area. That's different for apartments, and that's where you're remembering the playgrounds. You have to create some usable green space, and typically those developers are going to fall on a playground. It could be a horseshoe pit or walking trails and picnic tables and barbecue grills and those things. But that's in there. We don't have it for single family. It's something we've looked at. We had pushback here several years ago when we were trying to get to the point where if a developer came in with a phased development, when you hit X number of lots, you had to create a pocket park and you had to maintain it, and that fell flat. Now, many developers have provided them. It becomes an amenity and a selling feature. We continue to work with them to encourage them to provide them. We're going to see more and more mobile home parks that we hope get that facelift, that do then add additional spaces, because it is very accessible housing in a very quick manner. Conversations we'll share with them when we meet with them is Planning Commission would like to see these things. At some point, if we get more traction from council, we may even be able to come forward with some proposed ordinance amendments. We may need your assistance going forward to council to actually get them in place, because again, we've tried in the past and we haven't succeeded.
Thank you, Vicki.
Just one final point. I would just hope that the people that develop these think of that, and that they look at their community and what they're building. And so, yeah, I hope that at some point, I hate to say that I want to require it by the government entities. I would hope that it's just something that is commonplace, and it's just important to all people in our community. So.
Ethan.
It was covered, I think, in your presentation, but I understand then that the approval of this request does not trigger the rest of the mobile home court come into compliance with existing ordinances?
That's correct, to the extent of what we talked about was the setbacks. There are some mobile homes that do have slight encroachments into the required 25-foot setback along 143rd and along Seeger. And because those are existing structures, they're considered legal non-conforming. But as soon as they're proposed to be replaced, then the new structures have to come into compliance.
So this wouldn't trigger, I guess, are there other actions that they might take that would trigger, say, well, the width requirement of mobile homes and the lot requirements?
In addition to the setbacks, there's also clearances between the mobile home spaces that have to be met. And so they'll need a separate building permit for each mobile home that they add. Each of those 85 proposed new mobile home lots will have to have their own building permit so that they're showing that they're meeting the clearances between the spaces as well.
But nothing with regard to the existing portions of the mobile home court?
Madam Chair, so we have a section within our zoning ordinance called legal non-conforming, and it's a tricky read. I think every attorney that gets assigned our department, it's one of the biggest challenges that, you know, how do we apply it consistently, fairly, and justly? And Carl's shaking his head because it's something that as planners are working through this, there seems to be some gray. But where we've fallen on, based on the language as it stands today, this was annexed in. It met design standards in the county when it was annexed. So it's legal non-conforming, and they can maintain that design as long as they want. If they go to replace it, those replacement units have to meet clearances, setbacks, parking, paid parking, etc. If they expand the footprint of the use, those spaces have got to meet the same design standards. But the existing ones can continue on until they need to be replaced. It's a great question, and it's really difficult. Now, with the mobile home park, the mobile homes don't last forever. So eventually, over time, all of these spaces will conform. But overall, this is a really clean mobile home park, and they do a great job maintaining it. So to see them expand and keep up this same business plan, it's a plus for our community.
Thank you, Vicki. Karen?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. First, I want to say that I am pleased to see that some of the road connections within are connecting. That gives everybody a better chance of getting out, and I think that's a real plus, so I was really pleased to see that. My question comes down to the water and sewer. I understand that the city's taking over and are doing that, but within the staff report, it said that they had to make sure that it adding these on, it still would work within the system that they've got, and if they don't, then they have to provide a different one. Is that my understanding from the staff report? Todd?
The existing mobile homes will stay on the private system. The new expansion is proposed to be connected to the city public main. I'm not sure if that helps clarify what they're doing, and we have no issues with the public main, with our ability to serve it, but they do have a private system right now that they're going to maintain for the existing facilities.
Okay, so maybe I misunderstood the staff report. I thought it said that adding on would be different. So what you're saying is that they'll keep their current one, and then this one, the 85, will be added to the city?
That's what's proposed, yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to jump in again, Todd. So earlier we talked about the lagoons. You know, they're not, it turns out they're not drainage ponds, they're lagoons. So they have a different sanitary system that's not lagoons, is what I'm hearing.
The sanitary sewer in Seeger extends into the mobile home park, so these will all tie into our public main.
Oh, okay, so then maybe is it the water then that they have a private system?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, the water's private. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Does that answer your question, Karen? Are you more confused now?
So maybe I combined the two, and so the water is one thing, but the sewer part, if they add the 85, we have to make sure that that one, you know, can still work with the additional 85, or else they'd have to come up with something else?
Are you
No.
talking about added capacity to
Yeah,
the system?
There's no issues with the sewer's capacity or what they're proposing. They'll just all tie in. There's a public main that goes right through the mobile home park that was constructed a number of years ago for that purpose, to abandon those lagoons. So the main's in place, all of the mobile homes will tie into it, and the existing private water system will be maintained both east and west of this expansion, but this expansion in the middle will be served by public water.
Okay.
Madam Chair, so it's been a while since this mobile home park abandoned utilizing the lagoons and came on board to city sewer. I've been out there years ago when those lagoons were functioning, and they turn over in the spring of the year, and boy, you don't want to be in the area when that happens. So to see them dry up and then now become usable space for more mobile homes, that's great. Thank you for the clarification. City sewer, the existing mobile homes are on their own private community water source. New mobile homes, city water. And we do have capacity to serve the new mobile homes in this area. Does that help you, Karen?
Yes, it was something that was said in the staff report that got me confused, and so I don't have it in front of me, so I can't look at that, but that does clear it up, so I appreciate the answer.
It is a confusing one.
All right, Vince?
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, the benefit of going last, or most to last, is that most of you have already brought up everything that I had on my mind. I mean, Eric and Mike, I mean, we've talked about these green spaces and in these developments, and I'm not talking about this particular mobile home park, and I don't want to, because it has nothing to do with what we're trying to get accomplished. What I'm hoping is that the City Council is listening to this right now and understands what we're talking about, and that if we do want to come up with changes, these are necessary. Now, Rapid City is lucky. We were host to one of the nation's largest lender of loans for manufactured housing. So when we talk about affordable housing, we have a responsibility to our community as well, especially if we're hosting these lenders here. So when it comes down to it, these green spaces and these community areas should be protected, and I thank you all for bringing that up. Thank you.
Thank you, Vince. And I made a comment earlier, and I just want to clarify that that comment was really just about being right next to a salvage yard. You know, I lived in a mobile home when I was a child. It wasn't a nice mobile home or a nice mobile home park, but I do know that they can be done very nicely, and, you know, can provide safe, clean, affordable housing for people. So I just want to clarify that I wasn't against mobile homes in general, just, you know, the safety and pollution concerns. But Eric.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to go back to the lagoons one more time and ask how they're going to be dismantled, if you will, filled in.
I'll defer that question to Todd.
I believe they've already been decommissioned, and at this point, I'm assuming that they've already, or their plans are just to fill it in, but yeah, I'll check with Kyle to see if there's any state requirements that still need to be met, because we don't regulate that.
And Kyle, when you come up, can you please identify yourself? Sure. Thank you.
Kyle Hansen with FMG Engineering. The wastewater lagoons were abandoned in 2016 when the sanitary sewer system was brought into the park. And then part of the reclamation process was to get approved by the South Dakota Department of Agricultural and Natural Resource. And within there, we basically had to take some soil samples to make sure that there's no contamination in the soil. And through those tests, we determined that that there were some contaminants in the eastern ponds, because there's actually 4 wastewater lagoons in the park. So we have an approved reclamation plan with the Department of Agriculture and Natural Resource. So we basically will just fill in those holes of where the wastewater lagoons were.
But you have to have clean from contaminants before you can actually build on that, correct?
Yeah, so they really only look at fecal coliform, and so by excavating out the contaminated soil and leaving it to air dry, they are okay with repurposing it as fill material as needed. So
no further testing is really required at this point?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kyle. I appreciate it. I don't have any additional lights up. Any staff comments or audience comments at this time? All right. Well, then I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Okay, Karen made the motion to approve with stipulations. And then, Mike or Vince? Vince. Seconded. Do we have any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. And that brings us to the end. Do we have any discussion items?
Oh, yeah. So if you haven't heard yet, last Friday was the submittal deadline for medical cannabis dispensary conditional use permits. We accepted 19 applications. We're currently reviewing those to see how many are complete. We anticipate that all of them will be on your next agenda. But we also had numerous other submittals with some very large projects. So right now, we are sitting at over 43 items. If you look at our clock today, you had 7 items of discussion. You're going to have over 43 next time. So we are concerned that you're not going to be able to get through all of them within one meeting. And we've had to do this over the years, where we have to continue the Planning Commission meeting 1 week to the following Thursday. So I want you all to take note, mark it on your calendar. Our next Planning Commission meeting is November 24th, day before Thanksgiving. We will be confirming that we do have quorum, so that these are all extremely time sensitive in order to qualify to compete for that state license for dispensaries. They've got to be to the state by December 31st. if we did continue the meeting, let's say we met until 9:30 or 10, and then we continued the meeting till the following Thursday, that would be put it December 1st.
Second.
Let's go to the Thursday, December 2nd, because the 1st would be a Wednesday, and I think we're all accustomed to meeting on a Thursday. So it'd be November 24th would be our first half of the meeting. Potentially, December 2nd would then be the second half of the meeting. And then December 9th, you're going to be hearing, it's a brand-new agenda, you're going to be hearing more medical cannabis dispensary applications, and we think we're going to have many, 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 many more than 19 for that meeting. So it's a unique point in time because of the limitation of 15 licenses for dispensaries. Once we get this done and the 15 are awarded by the state, we won't go through this again. It won't be an ongoing thing, but it is for now something that we're going to have to work with. We are considering, because this is medical cannabis only. So this is where you go, you get a card, a doctor determines you have a qualifying condition, and you purchase product. If we believe that the use is permitted, are conditional because even though it's within 500 feet of a church, a playground, a daycare, a residential district, a public park, but those are on the backside. You can't see it from there. They don't interface with each other. One won't know the other one's there unless you drive a couple blocks away to find it. We may put those on consent to see about getting that bulk through. Any of them that we're not supporting, we are going to put on non-consent. Going into the meeting, if we get phone calls from neighbors on those that we thought wouldn't be an issue, we'll pull those. If someone shows up at the meeting, they can have an opportunity to pull it. If you've got questions about one of them, we can pull it. But I just want us to kind of know what that formula is going to be, that we've got to keep the meeting going, and that be prepared that we're going to probably have to meet 2 Thursdays in a row, followed up by a regular scheduled Planning Commission meeting on the 9th. There'll be a Wednesday and a Thursday, yes. Thank you.
So again, those dates would be Wednesday the 24th, which is right before Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Thursday the 2nd, and then Thursday the 9th.
Right.
Okay.
And then I assume we will have some regular items on the agenda too. Will they be placed at the start of the agenda?
Yes, those will be. They'll be, and we have several non-consent items that you're going to want to discuss. John mentioned one, the rezone and the plat for High Point Ranch North. We've got the Block 5 project coming in, which used to be known as Presidential Plaza. So we've got some huge items coming forward at this meeting. We plan on getting those regular things through first. Of course, if we do have dispensaries that are on consent and you approve the consent agenda, some will get that action. And again, it's also time sensitive in that anyone can appeal the decision of the Planning Commission for 7 calendar days. So these applicants are waiting, holding their breath, thinking, okay, hopefully no one appeals it. If they don't, then they can then advance to secure the provisional license for the dispensary through finance, and then they qualify to apply for the state. And everyone's racing for that December 31st date to get into the state for consideration for the tie-breaking, whatever that happens to be. We're thinking it'll be a raffle, but that'll be up to the state. Make sense? In other words, come with your tennis shoes on. We're going to have to move quick, be specific to discussion, keep things going forward, and, you know, just be kind and considerate. If we need to extend the meeting a week, so we do. We wanted to give everyone the opportunity to be heard, to vet these items, and to, as you guys always do, you make the best decisions for the community. And I think it's going to take a little more time than just one meeting to get through those 43 items or more.
And then do we have a second meeting in December after that? After December 9th?
No.
And we're good till January?
We abandoned that second meeting in December several years ago.
I kind of thought so, but okay.
Then everyone gets to go on vacation.
Any other Planning Commission discussion? I don't think your mic is on, Jen. Sorry.
All right. Well, you know, that Wednesday before Thanksgiving is almost like a travel day for most people. A lot of them take it off. What are we going to have here? Does anybody have plans? I mean, are we going to get a quorum? Do we know now if we're going to have a quorum even?
Madam Chair?
Yes,
So
Vicki?
we've had this meeting this way for many, many years. We always do have quorum. We've never had to continue the meeting because of lack of quorum. For Planning Commission, we just need 5. So we'll be in contact, sending out emails. Please respond. If you know you're going to be gone, let us know now or as soon as you can, so that we can make arrangements for that too. But in the past, it's sometimes just been quorum, but we've always had quorum.
I already planned to take the day off, so I guess it works out.
So in other words, you're saying bring treats?
Yeah.
Any other discussion items? Yeah. Staff items, planning commission, no? Okay. Anyone want to make a motion? Okay, Mike makes the motion to adjourn. Vince seconds. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Alrighty, we're adjourned.